Carmen Sandiego and SimCity revitalise classic 90s games, Zynga announces some new stuff that looks a hell of a lot like its old stuff, a new LEGO MMO is in the works, Mass Effect 3 continues to divide fans, new DLC is on the way for both Spec Ops: The Line and apparently Planeswalkers 2013, we get a look at the new Lara Croft, Ubisoft doesn't make many friends, Japan penalises sleeping dogs over civilian deaths, and the Team Fortress short film collection is finally complete, all in this week's edition of Player Attack. Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen, and I would like to answer one of the most frequently asked questions in gaming history. Finally, we have discovered just where in the world Carmen Sandiego is actually hanging out, and it's in Hollywood, where Jennifer Lopez and Darren Lemke, a writer who's worked on Shrek Forever After and the upcoming Jack the Giant Killer, are working on a film interpretation of the super spy's antics. At this stage, nothing has been confirmed regarding acting talent, but early reports suggest that J-Lo may be looking to don the red jacket herself. It's already being described as a cross between the Thomas Crown Affair and Nicolas Cage's National Treasure, so it will be interesting, to say the least, to see how the adventures of Carmen Sandiego translate to the big screen. That's not the only educational video game enjoying a resurgence this year. Electronic Arts and Playfish this week launched the open beta of their new project, SimCity Social, an adaptation of the original city builder created specifically for Facebook. And while that concept might sound familiar, the developers would like to point out one major difference between their game and the competition.
Hey, looky here, I'm playing SimCity, I swear to you, she's looking pretty, there's fire and crime and pollution will rise. More city, less bill. There's more to do than tip cows. Take up mini golf, put down the plow. Send shit to your neighbor, throw monster truck rallies, cause it's more city, less bill. Loot a factory or two so you can fund your unicorn ranch. Set your city ablaze, create mayhem insane. It's more city, less bill. Alright, there's one last thing and I want you to hear me. Hold on to your hats, hold on to them dearly. SimCity is here, ain't she a beauty? There's more city, less bill.
In the same week as EA releases a game that looks just like an earlier Zynga release, Zynga itself turned around and announced a game that bears a striking resemblance to last year's Sims Social. Titled simply The Ville, players can create custom avatars, hang out with each other, hold parties, buy furniture, and do all the sorts of things you can get up to in that other life simulator. During this week's Zynga Unleashed event, the company also revealed plans for Farmville 2, a beefed-up version of Cafe World called Chefville, and its own new social multiplayer platform named simply Zynga with Friends. And speaking of reinventing things, there is a new MMO based in the LEGO universe on the way from the Secret World developer Funcom. It will tie closely into the LEGO minifigures range, the best-selling toy line across the UK last year. BioWare launched the long-awaited extended cut content for Mass Effect 3 this week, and while some fans are happy, just as many seem to be upset by the decision to expand the game's controversial ending, and still more are upset by the fact the developers seem to have gone back on their word and actually made several changes to the end of the games. The UK Ad Standards Authority recently dismissed claims that BioWare deliberately misled customers of the game, finding that despite fans' complaints to the contrary, the decisions you make throughout the 3 games in the series completely shape your experience and outcome. The new content, which requires a replay of the end stages of Mass Effect 3, also contained code which hinted at future downloadable content packs, bringing even more depth and insight into the sci-fi trilogy. And speaking of DLC, Spec Ops: The Line had barely hit shelves this week before developer Jaeger announced it was preparing a whole bunch of new content designed to arrive in approximately August, all absolutely free. The 4 new multiplayer co-op missions are designed as a prelude to the full game's single-player campaign, throwing you and your mates deep into the sandstorms of Dubai. Even more DLC news comes from fans snooping around the freshly released Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planeswalkers 2013. A quick peek behind the scenes revealed 5 new decks will be released in installments, each one featuring 2 colours, 60 cards, and a bunch of unlocks. Even though the same thing happened with the launch of Planeswalkers 2012, both Stainless Games and Wizards of the Coast are remaining tight-lipped on the accuracy of these discoveries. One discovery that is accurate is the fact that British actress Camilla Luddington will be providing the voice and motion capture acting for Lara Croft in the new Tomb Raider from Crystal Dynamics. Camilla was picked from hopefuls across the world, with head of studio Darryl Gallagher explaining that she has the right combination of emotional depth and youthful tone. She will in fact be the first Lara Croft to take on the physical element of the role, which follows on from previous roles in Californication, True Blood and the royal telemovie William and Kate, where she played Kate Middleton, the future Duchess of Cambridge. In other news, Ubisoft has been on the receiving end of some particularly pointy criticism. First, over the remarkably unsurprising release date adjustments applied to a trio of titles earlier this week. Far Cry 3 has been pushed from September to late November, Just Dance 4 isn't due out until October, and the release of Rocksmith in Europe, the Middle East, Asia and Australia has been pushed back another 2 weeks to September 27th. Of course, that's all understandable and in some ways almost expected, really. But what was surprising and very frustrating was the launch of Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Future Soldier, which hit PC this week after a slight delay. Apparently, it wasn't delayed quite long enough, with gamers reporting a whole bucket load of issues, a failure to acknowledge keyboard and mouse controls, constant crashes, frequent disconnects in online multiplayer, and graphical issues which actually got worse following a day one patch from the developer. Ubisoft explains the team is working aggressively on the game's issues, but is keeping quiet on just how the bugged release got through all their security checks. One thing that Ubisoft is doing quite nicely though is working with Nadeo on Shootmania Storm, the first FPS spin-off from the ridiculously popular Trackmania series. If you like what you see, act fast. Sign-ups for the closed beta of Shootmania Storm are open right now, but they are closing again on July 2nd. Miss out and you'll have to wait until the game launches sometime later this year. Different countries have different rules when it comes to in-game content. What's fine in some parts of the world can be very not fine in others. Just ask United Front, who is currently preparing a special Japan-only edition of upcoming action title Sleeping Dogs. The game, to be launched in Japan as Sleeping Dogs Hong Kong Secret Police, has already gained an adults-only Z rating from the local ratings board, which means it can only be kept behind the counter of gaming stores, with customers required to ask for it by name. Even at that higher rating, there is one key element of the game which must be changed prior to its Japanese release. United Front is now working on a new penalty system, dished out in certain missions for killing innocent bystanders. The extra content will take about a month to finalise, with the game arriving in Japan on September 27th. And finally this week, a trailer that has been 5 years in the making. We've been allowed to meet the other 8 members of Team Fortress 2, but Valve have saved this one for last, so please, meet the Pyro.
I fear no man. But that thing, it scares me.
No, I ain't talking about that freak, alright? He's not here, is he? How do I get this fucking thing off?
One shudders to imagine what inhuman thoughts lie behind that mask. One dreams of chronic and sustained cruelty.
Do you believe in magic? In a young girl's heart, how the music can free her whenever it starts, and it's magic. If the music is grooving, it makes you feel happy like an old time movie. I'll tell you about the magic that will free your soul, but it's like trying to tell a stranger about rock and roll. In magic, don't bother to choose if it's jug band music or rhythm. It starts trickling, you can't see the sign. Now you got magic, so just
We don't know why it's taken the company so long to get the video out to gamers, particularly because Valve has also just released the Source Filmmaker, the video editor created inside the Source engine that has been used to create all 9 TF2 movies. Source Filmmaker is now in closed beta with the expectation that it will be available free of charge by the end of the year via Steam. For the full version of those trailers or for more information on any of these stories, head to playerattack.com. I'm Jessica Citizen. We'll see you next week.